The Responsibility of Investing is a podcast by the PRI, the world's largest global body on responsible investment, representing over $128 trillion in assets under management. Each episode features conversations with thought leaders and experts from around the world, exploring how sustainable factors are transforming the investment landscape. This series helps PRI signatories and the wider investment community navigate responsible investment with greater precision and confidence for the benefit of both investors and society.
Good day. It's very exciting to speak the first words on the PRI podcast series, The Responsibility of Investing. The world is changing and therefore the PRI is changing with it. We have taken stock of what's important for our signatories and have concluded that our strategy is still very much on point. That means that we remain committed to our 4 focus areas, and we will therefore continue to drive signatory progression on responsible investing while streamlining PRI mandatory reporting. We will strengthen regional ecosystems in both mature markets and emerging and developing economies. We will amplify signatory impact by supporting and leading collaborative initiatives. And last but not least, we will strengthen the enabling environment for responsible investing by influencing government and multilateral policy and financial market practices. You know all of this because that has been our strategy for over a year now. At the same time, we realized that we had to shift to a higher gear on 4 different work sites. First of all, we will restate the case for responsible investing. Quite fundamentally, we want to deliver the response to why is taking into account sustainability and other long-term considerations a good thing? Why is that the way to go for long-term investing? Secondly, and it's another case of going back to the roots really, we must better listen to asset owners, who are the alpha and the omega of our signatory base. In 2025, we are on the road to the COP30 climate conference that will be hosted in Belem, Brazil, where heads of state will meet and where climate, nature and capital mobilization will take center stage. And we feel that we need to shine the investment spotlight on these matters quite fundamentally. That's also why we take PRI in person, our flagship event, to Sao Paulo early November, dovetailing into the climate conference that starts the week after. Last but not least, we feel we need to communicate better with our signatory base and the world. That starts with making sure that we create an IT platform that is 2025 and beyond worthy, I would say. And we are working very hard to bring that to the market before the end of the year. And it also means a diversified way of communication. Thorough thought leadership pieces will always be arrows on our bow, but a podcast speaking to interesting leading voices in the investment industry belongs there too. So that's why we created the Responsibility of Investing podcast series. And I'm thrilled to go back to Brazil, to go back to COP30, to go back to PRI in person in São Paulo, and I will speak to José Pugas, who is Regia Capital's Chief Sustainability Officer, and he has a very, very insightful and exciting view on the future of responsible investing. So here is what I discussed with him. José, welcome to this podcast. A very special welcome, I would say, as you are the very first guest of our new podcast series that we baptized The Responsibility of Investing. And let me start by a confession. We met late last year, and after 10 minutes, I knew you had to be our first guest on the podcast. So rest assured, I can explain why. That is. But I have a better suggestion. Why don't we just kick off and let people know or let people experience why it's a good idea to have you on this podcast? Is that okay?
Sure, Paul. And just to make the audience quite aware, if the episode fails, it's your to blame. So it's. But thanks so much. But thanks so much. I hope that will be a major success. I'm sure that will be a major success. It's an astonishing time for being a Brazilian investor right now to be able to share that with your audience, with the rest of the world, that we are proudly uh, accepting our destiny to be a major powerhouse on green finance. For sure, it's something that is worth all of the dedication to share with you those ideas. And I really hope that your expectations will be attended.
Thanks, Jose. And you already mentioned it. You're a Brazilian investor. You are in charge of Regia Capital. Can you please introduce Regia Capital to us and maybe zoom in on why two major Brazilian players, JPG and BB Asset, decided to create an autonomous joint venture for sustainable investments?
Yes, Paul, you said it right. Regia Capital is a Brazilian asset manager. We are still a baby, just to complete our first anniversary. But it's a large baby, a large love baby. We have already $2.5 billion in assets under management, fully dedicated to what Europeans would call Article 8 and Article 9 SFTR funds, mostly on dark green. Yes, we are the child of two giants. We're talking about JGP Asset Management. Has been for the last 25 years the most successful independent asset manager in Brazil. And Banco do Brasil Asset, like BP Asset, as we call it. It's the largest asset manager in Latin America with over $300 billion in AUM. So why would they care to create something new if they were so well equipped with a wonderful team and tradition and brand? Because they understood that sustainable finance is something else. When you talk about sustainable finance, you talk about creativity, you talk about proactivity, you talk about stakeholders capitalism. It's a different mindset. It's a different team, it's a different management skill, and a different fund set. So they considered that the best way of being successful in such an important moment for Brazil was to create a dedicated structure. So Regia Capital was born from this. Banco do Brasil has a very bold objective that they call Agenda 2030, in which they have committed publicly to make huge investments on sustainability and nature sector and other sectors connected to what we call ecological transition in Brazil, economic ecological transition here in our country. And they understood that the best way of doing that was join efforts with someone with a proven track record and a well-established team. And JGP was this specific asset manager. And then the joint venture was born, Regia Capital. And here you are, I'm a partner. I'm very proud to be the chief sustainability officer of this new initiative.
Very good. You mentioned it's a different skill set, right? Sustainable investment management. But when I look at your website, one of the things that caught my eye, marketing was one of my first loves, and it will always be, I guess. when I read your tagline, it says enabling sustainable investment solutions to pave the way for a thriving new economy. Is that really how you see it? Is sustainable investment linked to the future of our economy?
For sure. If you want to have an economy, you have to change the way that we invest in this economy. Otherwise, something much worse will happen. So there is no healthy economy without a healthy planet, a healthy community. And it's our role as investors to mobilize the capital to make this future becomes a more desirable future, coming faster than what we are eagerly desiring. So the capital mobilization is a large part of every one of us in the investment sector we are doing. Sometimes we forget that the financial sector currently is the largest responsible for every capital flow. When we decide to invest on something and not on a company and not on a project, we are saying that this company, this project that we're investing deserves more than the other. So our choices create this path in that direction for a future that will affect us all, investors or not. So we understand the responsibility, acknowledge this responsibility, and embrace this responsibility. So every time when someone asks me, though, what's the size of the green economy? It's the size of the whole economy. We have to move everything from one place to the other. So there is no restriction. If you want to have a financial sector in the future, we need this financial sector to be fully responsible.
Okay, interesting. Very good. Jose, one of the reasons we met as well is that PRI in person, our biggest flagship event, comes to Sao Paulo later this year on the 4th and the 6th of November to be precise, and that's immediately prior to the COP30 Heads of State Summit in Belem. What does it mean for your country, for Brazil, to be the host of these international gatherings?
Well, it's just amazing, isn't it, Mo? It's funny because Brazil, everyone knows Brazil. Brazil is a very famous country, one of the largest economies in the world. But even so, for Brazilians to be understood as a powerhouse, as a economic power, as a country, a relevant country, make us extremely proud. It's part of our self-esteem, and right now, it's becoming part of our identity and how we can contribute with the rest of the world. So it's not just a question of, okay, COP30 is coming, PRI in person is coming, had the BRICS now, and last year we had the G20. So many great international events happening here in Brazil and in many cities. We're not just proud to be able to host that, but to be able to contribute with what our identity is, with our skills, our human capital, our culture with the rest of the world. So to be part of this global village, it's something that makes us extremely excited. And to have in the same place, in the same week, COP30 and PRI in person, continuously working together, cooperating, is the first time that happened. And in a moment that it's impossible to decline the public-private partnership in a world that is changing. If you want it or not, it is changing. So to be able to connect both events, both communities, parts and non-parts of the COP into a memorable moment of international connection when so many are discussing the path of multilateralism. It's a living proof that multilateralism is alive, well, and live in Brazil.
Right, good. Part of your identity. I really liked. I really like that bit of. It's ambitious, but I know you mean it. So thank you for that. At the PRI, we see significant increase lately in signatory action and advocacy to address nature loss. Very relevant to Brazil, I guess, as well. What are you seeing there?
Something that is very peculiar to global south in comparison to global north and mostly Brazil. The largest share of our GHG emissions is not on energy. It is on deforestation. It is on nature loss. And for us specifically, we had a huge part of our economy fully dependent on nature. So it's very easy for us here in Brazil to discuss a nature-based economy, not just nature-based solutions. We have the largest sector is the agricultural sector, which is a heavily nature-dependent sector. In the same way, there is the one that's pushing for deforestation. So we need to be very careful because it's the one who most affects, but also the sector which is most affected by the nature loss and by the climate changes that is a factor out of that. So for us, it's easy to identify nature as the nature loss as a risk, but nature as an opportunity. So here in Brazil, it's becoming something very easy to discuss nature as infrastructure, as an investment, or nature-based climate solutions. For investors, mainstream investors or ESG investors, nature is a current topic, it's a trend. And with, as I told you, Paul, it's part of our identity. It's creating something new in us and those events. So it's part of if there's part of our identity, it would be part of our investments as well. So culturally, nature is not an alien for the financial sector. And it's different for other countries. I understand that. But that's what I hope that can be our contribution to the rest of the world.
All right, thank you. Can I elaborate a little bit on that, linking it really to investments, which you did already. But should investors be activists? Is that a role? Should we stand on the soapbox and participate and be loud? Is would be my question, I think.
Well, nothing speaks louder than money. So we are naturally activists. And sometimes we forget that because when we think about activists, we have a very stereotypical perspective of someone who is always loud on their messages, always connected to social and environmental causes, and never at the office, always on the streets, always mobilizing. There is a place for these activists. Thank God we have those activists. I've been this kind of activist for most of my life. But when you are a financier, you are active. You are actively transferring capital to causes. Sometimes lost causes. Some of them are terrible causes that are completely affecting negatively the rest of the world. So if you are actively making those movements, why not to make those movements for something that matters, something that change positively all the world? So to be an activist is not just to speak loud all of the air out of your lungs. Not that. It's understand that every movement matters. When you decide to invest in something, you are actively supporting the something that we're investing silently, but publicly, because investments are public. You be judged by yourself and by anyone who understands that what you're investing is a good or a bad cause. If you understand that naturally we are activists, we can be better activists. We can enjoy our role much better and embrace the responsibility of what we have. It's part of our fiduciary duty, not just as investors, but as human beings.
To make money speak, but also to speak up as an advocate for the causes you support. Okay, I'm stating the obvious when I say that your country has a big role to play in the globe's climate and nature goals. As you're the host of, I guess, 60% of the 6.7 million square kilometer big Amazon forest. I'm from Belgium. I don't even know what that is. I guess it's about it's about 200 times the size of my country. In your view, what are the key bottlenecks or challenges for the investment opportunities in support of Brazil's contribution to climate and nature goals? So bottlenecks, what are the difficulties?
It's a good question. It's sometimes when you think about nature-based solutions, we forget everything that got a scale. So, for example, biofuels, bioenergy is a huge business in Brazil, well-established, well-funded. It's a successful nature-related economy. And bioenergy is something that the world is demanding. So, but what happens? What's the difference that took biofuels into a mainstream category? And for the rest of the bioeconomy, it's still challenging. Well, most of them are pre-competitive industries. We are still building those economies. And for the financial sector, we don't have all the specialists in every sector, in every topic. And sometimes it's very hard for us to understand the risk of the projects, the opportunities of the projects. So as we understand that the cost of capital and the way that we create the financial solutions pass through a proper risk perception, if our risk perception is wrong, for sure that financial mechanism will not fit to the real world. So the real challenge here is not technical challenge. It's not a challenge that can be solved with traditional financial tools. It's much more a cultural and diplomatic challenge. How we can connect to other background, to other specialists from outside financial sector. We cannot discuss nature. We cannot discuss agriculture. We cannot discuss bioeconomy without talking to specialists, without being connected to the real world. So for us, I think that the problem in Brazil and everywhere else for the financial sector is to break the fourth wall, is to abandon the offices, abandon the traditional professional background and embrace diversity and understand that this diversity of backgrounds, of this amazing diversity of human beings that we have is the key for us to understand new industries, new economies. And among those economies will be nature. And not just nature as a business case, but understand nature dependencies passes through a full change on the way that we understand the world. Nature cannot be contained by an Excel spreadsheet. It's much more than that. So a screen mode off, nature mode on. It's important to be in contact with the real world and then translate the real world to other tools. If the current tools are not enough, well, we need to change the tools. Let's improve it. We can't be content with the restrictions that we have, just ignoring because it doesn't fit our spreadsheets.
All right. Interesting. Almost philosophical at times. So very, very, very good. I like that. I asked you a couple of questions from a Brazilian angle. I would like to flip it around and look from a global point of view because as you said, it's nothing can be done in isolation. How can global investors partner better to help emerging markets and developing economies in their transition to low carbon economies? How do we mitigate risk? How do we catalyze sustainable, inclusive returns? Because that's what it's all about in the end. What can we do better from both sides, maybe?
The list is long. It's almost like Christmas of the list. But let's try to go to where
it's an Excel sheet. It's an Excel sheet,
yeah,
right?
yes, it is. But focusing on the what we can do on short term, on low hanging fruits on the financial
Yeah.
sector. First of all, global north and global south, we are emerging markets and developed countries, or when you say consuming countries, so consumer and producer countries, we are already connected. Actually, we are talking financially connected for many centuries through trade, through commerce, not necessarily through financial sector. So how can we use those already established bridges to connect our financial sectors? So the first movement that we can start making between consumer and producing countries that most of the times are developed countries and emerging development economies is using the bridges that we have. So there are plenty of wonderful, not plenty, I hope there was plenty, but there are some very well established cases of off-taking companies, CPG goods, consumer products goods companies that are financing the transition of their supply chain in countries like Brazil, like countries in Africa, our neighbors, Latin America. So it's important to understand that cacao will not grow on the Swiss Alps. We'll keep growing in Africa, in Latin America. So how we can, as a chocolate factory in Europe, how can we finance the transition of cacao production? Otherwise, we'll be out of cacao and we'll be out of chocolate. Nobody wants to be out of chocolate. It would be a very sad world. So use those commercial bridges, something essential. Secondly, understand that the financial structures necessary to move that capital goes much beyond macroeconomics. Most of the time, the risk perception is fully based on macroeconomics, not on financial opportunities. It's a very pretentious and most of the times fictional approach. Because for many investors, there is no difference between Brazil and Nigeria, Kenya, or other places, unfortunately. And the third, when we reduce the best way to reduce the risk perception and get into a real risk, not to a fictional risk, is talk to local players, associate to local players. When you go to Brazil, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Argentina, Colombia, there are amazing, Mexico, there are amazing asset managers. There's a very dynamic banking sector. Talk to them. Understand how you can invest with them, not against them, or just forgetting that they exist. When you do that, you are enforcing local capabilities that will improve the economy and create more financial opportunities, reducing the risks. So to have this full cooperation between financial ecosystems is more important than coordinate urgent capital flows. Use commerce for that. Use trade for that. Finance the companies in your own jurisdiction. Put some pressure on them. Build those on your own jurisdiction. You don't want to be exposed to Brazilian jurisdiction? Okay. But understand that you are exposed to Brazil. And how? You're exposed to all of those countries, indirectly or directly. So support those countries, supporting the companies, and make them understand that we are both a risk and an opportunity. I think that this is a low-hanging fruit.
All right. Because the first time we met, I remember you being very positive about the initiatives you see amongst emerging markets and developing economies. Is that still ongoing? Is that improving, increasing, speeding up, or do you see that dying off a little bit?
I don't think that we are dying off. Right now in Brazil, for example, We are mobilizing a lot of different cases and little different funds and different sophisticated approaches, mostly on blended finance for COP30 and PRI in person. We want to have a showcase of those opportunities. And it's creating a positive tide, a positive movement, momentum for all emerging markets. There are wonderful cases coming from Middle Eastern, from Southeast Asia, from Africa, and they wanted to be connected. So I think with all this special geopolitical moment, let's say that, we must more and more look to our neighbors, look to the other players that wasn't in our pipeline of partnerships. And it's created a new momentum for emerging markets because most of the time we used to talk only to developed countries, only to developed economies. We forgot to talk to our neighbors, emerging markets.
Yeah.
Now we're talking to each other and we are coordinating efforts, coordinating cases, sharing proof of concepts, sharing efforts, intellect, capital, human capital. And we start to say that brains, they're so much alike, but hasn't identified those likeness between us. And we start working together, always something wonderful happens. And it's already happening. So if I was enthusiastic a few months ago, I'm even more.
Yeah, no, and that's what I really wanted to check in on because I really felt that we met in a time when we were not as positive about what was happening in the world geopolitically, and you gave me a spark of hope and enthusiasm, and brought some very concrete examples to the table. So that's it's really good to hear that you can bring that feeling back. So
It's the
thanks
carnival
for
effect.
that. Absolutely. Let me take our discussion to a place I know we both love, Japan. When I spoke about the headwinds, the current headwinds in responsible investing or sustainability in general, let's face it, they're there. When I spoke to Kimura-san, the special advisor to the board of Nippon Life Insurance and PRI's board member, we landed very quickly on the concept of kintsugi. Or kintsukuroi, Japanese art form that involves repairing broken pottery by using special lacquer and often mixed with beautiful gold power to increase the effect to mend cracks. The Japanese don't see it just as a repair technique. It's a philosophy basically that embraces the history and the imperfections of an object. Viewing the cracks as part of its story. So I apologize for going all philosophical on you, but we basically landed on the fact that overcoming headwinds makes everything stronger. Is that how you see things as well? And is the metaphor a good one for sustainable and sustainability and sustainable investing?
Sure. I think it couldn't be better. And yes, we are both fans of Japanese culture, and probably
Absolutely.
they will hate us in the way that we are saying some Japanese words. So, gomenasai. But here I'm a kintsugi art collector, so I have some kintsugi arts in my home, and it's a passion of mine. And it is, as you quite well said, is part of the wabi-sabi philosophy, is to appreciate the imperfection, the beauty of imperfection. We are imperfect beings. We are just humans. And we are trying to make things right, but most of the times we fail. But if we fail and we learn, we create something new, something better. Base it on the mistakes, but the mistakes there are understood as lessons. That's the basics of kintsugi, to create the history, those scars as part of our uniqueness, as part of our charisma. So it is part of our persona. That's what makes us who we are. And sustainability, it's a mass of scars. Here we had so many battles for so many centuries. ESG is something new. Sustainable investment is something new. But if you go to the ethics on investment, it goes all the way back to the first religions. It's in every sacred text. We're talking about how to act properly, on how you use money, how you deploy capital, how you understand and accumulate capital. So this ethics is the driver for any movement on sustainable investment. And as a tradition that is with us on the last 5 millennium. It has a lot of scars, so we need to appreciate that. I understand that many times there is a backlash, but the importance and being more philosophical is like I live in Rio, and we are just connected to the sea. I think the East Japan is right connected to the sea as well. And the things when you see the tide going, it's not it's go wave by wave. The importance is that the next wave, the next backlash, is to put us on a much favorable situation than the best or the largest wave of the last. So it's what is happening. The next stage, if those backlashes that we are having right now in some places, it's happening on a much more favorable landscape than what we have a generation ago. When I when I 20 years ago, when I started in sustainability, I still need to defend the idea of climate change. Most of the people, they were not aware or they were skeptical about climate changes. Right now, to be skeptical about that's more a psychiatric situation than something that we see on a daily basis. There is something for us right now that we have a consensual minimum of to debate sustainability. We have PRI with us. We have this podcast. We have a very mature discussion on sustainable investments happening here. And this kind of discussion wouldn't happen 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Probably when I return to this podcast in 10 years from now and remember this podcast of ours, this episode right now, we will look back and say, why? Well, we were not that advanced back then. Maybe we should be even ashamed of what we were discussing back then. And this would be great because this is this kintsugi moment that we are building here that probably will be ashamed 10 years, will be a part of our history. It will be part of something that is better. If you look back 10 years ago and say, wow, we were so much more defensive back then, this is a real backlash. We have evolved since then. We are evolving.
All right. Thank you, José, and also thank you for not only for your answer, but for proving that we're really global. Because I felt at a certain moment in time you brought in Nelson Mandela, right? Who said, "You win or you learn." So that's really what I remembered. The last question, and maybe the most important question, as I said in the beginning, the subtitle of our podcast series is ROI. Not return on investment, but the responsibility of investing. What do you see as your personal responsibility, being a leader who can move the dial in investment land? I know you've landed on it a couple of times, responsibility and commitment, etc. But what do you see as the responsibility of investing for someone like you?
Oh, this is a great question. Personally speaking, and I've been an activist for my whole life. Part of NGOs and some philanthropic programs and so on. I'm still an activist. When I decided to go to the financial sector, and it was a voluntary decision, a very painful decision, but a voluntary decision, it's because I understood that the financial sector was the place that we could drive more change faster and more effective than any other. There's a place for everyone, even for a financial sector. And the financial sector is huge. So our responsibility as an investor and as a human being, there is acting on the financial sector is to realign values and capital. Because sometime, I don't know when, we forgot that. We forgot that money was the token of goodwill, was the token of what community understands as better for this community. We need to recapture that meaning of capital, reconnect values and capital. Understanding that the financial sector right now is the largest value judge that we have in the world because we define the value of almost everything. Huge responsibility that we have. And as a leader at Regia Capital, and as Regia Capital is a regional leader in the sustainable finance, we can never forget this responsibility, the magnitude of this responsibility. And also always having this perception It's not, we are not doing that just for the living ones. We are doing that for the ones that were not born and for the ones that are no longer here. It's the Chesterton perspective of of real responsibility. It's not for the oligarchy of the ones who are lucky to be alive right now. So that's the size of the responsibility that we must ensure.
All right. Jose, what are the questions that I forgot to ask you? Or have we covered it all? As a responsible investor leader, what is blatantly missing in the chat that we had?
What are the best parties doing PRI in person? Probably. But out of
Okay.
that,
Okay.
out of that, I
No,
think that we have
no,
covered so much.
no,
There were so many things
no.
to talk about.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to create this coalition of empathies, it's essential. So I think that the last message that I can deliver to all is that trust in each other. It's the basic of any financial sector that works is based on trust.
Yeah.
Right now, we are just based on risks. You understand that trust is the best evaluator of risk of all.
Thanks, Jose. And as the chief marketing and strategy officer of the PRI, I also thank you for bringing back the topic to the PRI in person, because you know where you and I will be between the 4th and the 6th of November of this year. Really looking forward to coming to Sao Paulo in that week and see what we can accomplish together. And the only thing that remains for me to do is to really thank you for this interesting chat. And let me say that I do not regret making the decision after 10 minutes of knowing you that that you would be the first of our guests. So thank you very much, José Pugas.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Paul. And thank you to all the audience that is still with us. And hope to be this endeavor to be a huge success. I know that it will be.
All right. Thank you, Jose.
See you in São Paulo. Be in person. Don't miss it.